Rome didn't fall overnight. It crumbled while its people were too busy watching the games. Free food and endless entertainment kept everyone distracted while corruption and decay spread under their feet. The emperors learned that distraction was stronger than fear. Now 2,000 years later, our screens play the same role. The only question is, have we already stepped into our own Colosseum without realizing it? At its height, Rome looked unstoppable. The empire stretched across continents, its armies feared, its wealth unmatched. Citizens believed they lived at the center of the world, confident that no power could ever challenge their strength or prosperity. Grand temples, marble streets, and golden statues filled every corner of the capital. The people saw beauty and progress, but the shine hid the growing cracks underneath. Rome's success came at a cost few were willing to notice. Endless wars drained the empire's treasury, and conquered territories demanded constant control. To maintain dominance, Rome needed both money and loyalty. But loyalty was fading, and the money was running out faster than anyone admitted. Citizens began to feel the strain. Food prices climbed, taxes rose, and those in power seemed untouched by hardship. Whispers of frustration filled the markets, but open complaints were rare. People still trusted Rome's image of strength. Inside the palaces, senators argued about how to keep peace without fixing the root problems. Reform took effort. Distraction was easier, so they turned to something that worked like magic: entertainment. Bread for hunger, circuses for the mind. That simple formula became Rome's most effective control tool. The people cheered louder than they complained, and that was all the rulers needed to keep the illusion alive. The first arenas rose like monuments to pleasure. Crowds filled them from morning until night. Gladiators fought, animals roared, and every shout from the audience covered up another political failure outside the walls. Each emperor tried to outdo the last. Bigger games, more prizes, more food for the crowd. The public adored them for their generosity, forgetting that those gifts came from the empire's shrinking treasury. Rome began to change. People stopped asking questions about governance or policy. They cared more about which gladiator would win, or which festival would come next. Citizenship turned into spectatorship. Behind the cheers, the Senate grew weaker. Power concentrated in a few hands, and bribery became normal. Laws were traded for favors, and loyalty followed the flow of money, not principle. The economy started to bend under pressure. Silver coins were mixed with cheaper metals, lowering their value. People noticed their savings buying less, but the games gave them something else to focus on. Farmers sold land to pay debts, and rich landlords built massive estates using slave labor. The divide between classes widened until the poor relied completely on state grain handouts to survive. City streets filled with citizens who no longer worked but waited for the next show or ration. As long as the entertainment never stopped, their dissatisfaction stayed quiet. The emperors learned that silence wasn't achieved by force alone. It came through noise, a constant storm of excitement that made people forget their power as citizens. Some thinkers warned that this path would destroy Rome from within. They spoke about lost virtue, wasted talent, and dependence on spectacle. Their words were drowned out by the crowd's cheers and music from the arena. The empire's leaders kept spending to maintain appearances. Palaces grew taller, parades became longer, and promises of prosperity echoed louder. Yet each display was built on debt and deception. Corruption touched every level of power. Officials took bribes, soldiers looted towns, and justice depended on status. The empire still looked strong from the outside, but inside, loyalty was decaying fast. Even common people started valuing pleasure over purpose. Wealth was measured in comfort, not contribution. Festivals replaced community service, and moral duty faded into background noise. By now, the games had become a part of life itself. Families planned their weeks around them. Merchants made fortunes selling trinkets to fans. The empire had turned distraction into an economy. While the arenas echoed with cheers, border defenses weakened. Generals were more interested in politics than protection. Yet news of defeat rarely reached the people. The spectacle was always louder than the truth. The emperors found that distraction worked even better when fear or frustration rose. Whenever there was unrest, another festival appeared, and the people's anger melted into applause. Rome's leaders had discovered something powerful. If you keep people entertained long enough, they stop caring who's in control. That realization shaped the rest of the empire's fate. Even as foreign armies tested Rome's borders, citizens stayed focused on the next big game. The empire's decline had already begun, but few recognized it. Noise had replaced awareness. The city that once valued discipline and duty now worshipped pleasure. Rome was still alive, but its purpose had changed. It existed to feed the crowd's attention, not to build a future. As the last great celebrations filled the arenas, the empire's foundation was already cracking. The crowd laughed and cheered, unaware that their golden age was ending, not with war but with distraction. As Rome's attention stayed fixed on entertainment, its leaders focused on control through image. Bread rations became smaller, but festivals grew grander. The people didn't notice the imbalance, because they were too busy celebrating the illusion of prosperity. The empire's economy strained under the constant cost of spectacles. Funding the games meant draining military budgets and ignoring infrastructure. Yet, as long as the crowds roared, no one cared how fragile everything had become. The poor filled the stands, grateful for food and distraction. They didn't see that the same rulers who handed out bread were taking away their future through taxes and endless wars. The rich treated the games like fashion shows, flaunting wealth and connections. Each public display became a competition for status, while genuine service to the state faded into memory. By the time the empire began losing its outer provinces, public faith in leadership was gone. But instead of demanding change, citizens demanded more entertainment to forget what they had already lost. Now the story moves forward. The stages are digital, and the colosseums fit in our hands. The same craving for distraction lives on, only now it's called content, likes, and engagement. Social media platforms became the modern arenas. They offered endless performances, humor, outrage, and quick satisfaction. The noise never stopped, and people learned to measure their worth in reactions instead of real relationships. Influencers replaced gladiators. They entertained, competed, and gained followers like ancient heroes winning cheers from the crowd. But their victories too were temporary, vanishing with the next trending video or viral clip. Corporations and governments saw how powerful distraction could be. Every second people spent scrolling was a second they weren't questioning, organizing, or noticing what truly affected their lives. Attention became the new currency of control. Algorithms took the place of emperors. They didn't rule by decree, but by preference, feeding each user exactly what kept them watching. It was control built on pleasure, not punishment. Hours slipped by as people scrolled through short clips and endless debates. The routine became invisible, part of daily life. The more time people gave, the less awareness they had left for the real world. Every click produced data, and every data point fed the system that shaped opinions, purchases, and even beliefs. The audience wasn't cheering anymore. They were feeding the empire without realizing it. In this new economy, outrage sold best. Conflict drew attention faster than calm discussion. Platforms learned that keeping people angry or amused worked better than keeping them informed. Complex topics were reduced to short bursts of emotion. Truth competed with humor, and facts lost to entertainment. People didn't leave the platform smarter, only more reactive and tired. The pattern looked familiar, an empire thriving on noise while its structure weakened underneath. Rome had its colosseums, we have our screens. The form changed, but the outcome began to look the same. TikTok became the ultimate colosseum. Quick videos replaced combat, and endless scrolling replaced cheering. Every movement of a thumb mirrored the rhythm of the Roman crowd calling for another fight. Each clip delivered a burst of satisfaction, rewarding the brain like applause rewarded gladiators. The crowd was now infinite, yet no one truly saw each other. The connection was surface deep, built on impulse. The digital feed offered endless novelty, keeping users locked in cycles of craving and reward. The empire of distraction no longer needed chains. It relied on desire alone to hold its citizens in place. Every pause in scrolling felt empty, so people returned again and again. The line between choice and addiction blurred until the act of stopping felt unnatural. Attention had become the new form of tribute. Real issues faded into the background. Poverty, debt, and inequality became statistics people scrolled past. Important events couldn't compete with viral dances and trends that lasted only a few hours. Disinformation spread easily in this environment. It didn't need proof, just entertainment value. Lies traveled faster than truth because they were easier to enjoy, and the crowd preferred amusement over accuracy. Each platform encouraged speed over depth. People read headlines, not stories. They reacted before thinking. The pace of the feed made reflection feel unnecessary, even old-fashioned. News turned into performance. Outrage was scripted, reactions rehearsed. The goal wasn't understanding but engagement. Just like Rome's games, the point wasn't truth, it was to keep the audience watching. The crowd laughed, argued, and scrolled, unaware that their attention had become the empire's greatest resource. Power no longer ruled through force, but through design, keeping citizens distracted enough to stay docile. The new emperors didn't wear crowns, they wore logos, managing attention with algorithms instead of swords. And like Rome, the system seemed unshakable, confident that as long as the crowd stayed entertained, collapse could wait. History began to echo itself. Just as Rome filled its arenas while debt climbed, modern nations piled up deficits while keeping citizens busy with endless streams of content. Both worlds masked decline with spectacle. Rome's coins lost their value when silver was replaced by cheaper metals. Today, money loses value through inflation and constant spending, yet most people notice it only when daily life becomes harder to afford. Wealth gathered at the top, just as it had in ancient times. A small group controlled the flow of resources while the rest competed for attention, struggling to survive in systems built for the few. Ordinary people turned to entertainment for comfort. Just like Rome's citizens seeking bread and games, modern workers found escape in screens after long hours, using distraction as a shield against uncertainty and fatigue. The working class began measuring happiness through convenience instead of stability. Cheap comfort replaced long-term growth. The easier life felt, the less people noticed how fragile their security had become beneath the surface. Productivity dropped as focus shattered. Attention was scattered across multiple screens, each demanding another click. Rome's citizens lost discipline through luxury. Today's world loses it through overstimulation disguised as connection. Consumption became culture. People bought trends instead of tools, experiences instead of purpose. Every purchase promised identity, yet the feeling never lasted. Like Rome's festivals, pleasure had to be renewed again and again. Politicians learned that image mattered more than results. Policies turned into performances, sound bites into leadership. The crowd rewarded spectacle, not solutions, repeating the same mistake that hollowed out Rome's foundation centuries earlier. Economies thrived on temporary excitement. Markets surged and crashed based on emotion rather than value. Just like Rome's lavish games, today's financial highs distracted from the growing emptiness of real production. A false sense of progress spread everywhere. Technology advanced, but purpose shrank. People called it innovation, yet much of it only deepened distraction, giving the illusion of motion while meaning quietly disappeared. Cultural values shifted. Hard work lost its dignity, replaced by visibility and popularity. The number of followers or views became proof of worth, mirroring Rome's obsession with applause instead of achievement. Validation turned digital. People built their identity around reactions, likes, and comments. The search for approval became endless, creating a silent race that no one could ever win. Real relationships weakened. Connection turned into constant performance. People shared moments for attention instead of memory. Communities fragmented into smaller tribes built around opinions instead of shared purpose. Every group shouted louder, convinced of its truth, just as Rome's factions once fought over power while the empire weakened beneath them. Public debate turned into a sport. Winning arguments mattered more than solving problems. Division was profitable, and unity was boring. The louder the conflict, the more engagement it earned. Fame without contribution became common. People celebrated those who entertained, not those who built or healed. Skill lost to charisma, and visibility became the only standard for success. Celebrities replaced philosophers. Their words carried more influence than scholars or leaders. The crowd didn't seek wisdom anymore. It sought stimulation, just as Rome once adored its most brutal gladiators over its greatest thinkers. Curiosity faded, as information turned into noise. Facts came without depth, ideas without patience. The ability to think long-term vanished under the weight of constant short-term pleasure. Society became busy but shallow. People consumed everything: news, entertainment, outrage, yet remembered almost nothing. Minds filled with content but emptied of understanding. Rome's ignorance had returned, wearing a digital mask. Citizens no longer believed their voices mattered. Voting felt symbolic, activism performative. Like Rome's spectators, modern citizens watched rather than acted, mistaking awareness for change. Leaders noticed this fatigue and used it. Public focus could be redirected with a headline, a scandal, or a viral distraction. Real policy quietly moved in the background while the audience argued online. Complex issues like debt, inequality, and corruption were turned into entertainment segments. Hosts joked, crowds laughed, and attention shifted. By the time truth resurfaced, the audience had already moved on. Anger became a form of recreation. Outrage trends appeared and disappeared, creating the illusion of civic engagement. Yet nothing truly changed because rage kept people watching instead of acting. Governments learned that distraction worked better than control. They didn't need to silence voices when the crowd silenced itself through endless arguing, memes, and debates that solved nothing. The cycle became complete. Citizens entertained themselves into obedience, trading awareness for amusement. Democracy turned into a show where everyone watched, few participated, and power quietly consolidated in the background. Distraction became a form of peacekeeping. As long as the population stayed entertained, anger stayed manageable. People didn't notice how much power had shifted from citizens to corporations, quietly shaping opinion, policy, and daily behavior. Fear and division became the perfect tools for engagement. Content that provoked outrage performed better, keeping users locked in emotional cycles while true discussions about policy or responsibility faded into the background. Algorithms acted like invisible rulers, predicting reactions better than any emperor's spies. They learned to trigger curiosity, envy, or fear with precision, guiding millions of minds without needing force or command. Citizens became spectators in their own society. News arrived through entertainment shows, policies through viral clips, and civic duty through slogans. The line between informed and distracted blurred until it no longer mattered. Democracy survived on paper, but attention ruled in practice. Politicians spoke not to persuade, but to trend. The crowd rewarded drama, punishing thoughtfulness with silence, just like the Roman mob rewarding spectacle over wisdom. The cost of this endless spectacle began to appear in mental health. People felt drained, isolated, and overwhelmed. Constant stimulation left no space for rest or reflection, only the pressure to keep consuming. Loneliness grew even as technology promised connection. Friends lived inside screens, families shared less time, and digital intimacy replaced physical closeness. The world was busier, but fewer people felt truly seen. Patience disappeared from everyday life. People wanted instant results, faster news, faster love, faster money. The ability to wait, think, or build slowly eroded beneath the constant rhythm of notifications. Workplaces started mirroring the same patterns. Performance was measured by visibility, not depth. Speed mattered more than accuracy. Employees felt replaceable, chasing endless productivity metrics that mimicked the same attention economy outside. Education changed too. Lessons turned into short clips, knowledge reduced to headlines. The younger generation learned to swipe faster than they could analyze, gaining access to information but losing the skill of understanding. Attention spans shortened across every age group. Books gathered dust while feeds refreshed endlessly. Concentration became rare, and long-term goals felt impossible in a world that rewarded only the next click. As awareness faded, so did accountability. Companies and governments acted freely, knowing few would notice or remember. Like Rome's senators hiding behind festivals, modern power thrived in plain sight because no one looked closely enough. Progress looked impressive from afar, yet deeper inspection revealed decline. Cities glittered, economies grew, but meaning thinned. Innovation turned hollow when guided by profit instead of purpose. The illusion of advancement replaced genuine growth. Cracks appeared in the digital empire. Economic bubbles, political tension, and environmental crises showed the same instability Rome once faced. But just like then, entertainment drowned out the warning signs. People kept scrolling, kept laughing, kept buying. The more chaotic the world grew, the more comforting distraction became. The system had succeeded in teaching people to escape rather than confront reality. History began whispering its warning again. Rome had ignored its thinkers and lost itself in pleasure. Modern civilization stood at the same edge, repeating the same pattern with brighter lights and faster screens. Awareness required effort, and effort felt exhausting. It was easier to stay inside the stream of content than step back and question where it was leading. The crowd didn't rebel, it scrolled. Every empire believes it is different until decline becomes undeniable. Rome thought its size guaranteed survival. Today's world believes technology will save it. Both forget that strength fades when attention is wasted. Few asked who benefited most from the chaos. Behind every trending topic stood someone profiting from the distraction, shaping opinions while pretending to serve them. Control no longer needed armies, only algorithms and data. The true currency of this age became attention itself. Every second spent scrolling added value to systems built on addiction. The empire didn't tax income, it taxed focus. Yet awareness began to spark among a few. Some started turning off notifications, reading deeply, reconnecting with quiet. Small acts of rebellion formed, not through anger, but through choosing to be present again. Communities that once existed online began meeting in real life. People rediscovered the strength of direct conversation and the calm of shared silence. These moments, though small, carried the power Rome had forgotten. Change wouldn't come through outrage, but through attention, giving focus back to things that matter, to truth, learning, and care. The cure for distraction wasn't escape, it was awareness. Rome fell when truth lost its value. Modern society risks the same fate if it treats reality like optional entertainment. An empire of distraction cannot stand when no one remembers how to think. So we return to the question, are we watching the collapse, or starring in it? The feed never stops, the noise never fades, but awareness remains the last freedom no empire can steal.